Ingles is a proud sponsor of On the Beat, hosted by Mike Griffith. Shop online with Ingles Curbside Pickup. New curbside stores opening every week. Please welcome Mike Griffith.
Well, hey, everybody, Mike Griffith here. Welcome to tonight's Ingles on the Beat program. And man, do I got a special show for you tonight. I can't wait. You guys are going to love it. Coach Spurrier is going to be joining us soon. He's going to be talking a little bit about Clemson, Kirby, Georgia, Tennessee, SEC expansion. Coach Spurrier touched all the bases for us tonight, and I really appreciate Coach Spurrier joining us. I think you're really going to enjoy that. So here we are. It's finally game week. All this entire off season, we've been aiming towards the Georgia-Clemson game. What would it look like? What would it seem like? If you're Georgia right now, you're kind of like missing a couple guys, right? You were hoping maybe Dominic Blaylock could be back. You were thinking Tyke Smith would be this huge impact player from West Virginia. You're thinking maybe Eric Gilbert could haunt these teams with his ability to make these downfield catches and his athleticism. And Darnell Washington, a guy that had a dominant offseason, 6'7", 278, visions of Darnell trucking people. None of those guys are going to play in the game. It's not a full-strength Georgia team. Now, that's football, and it's next man up, and it's the first game of the season. And talking with John Fitzpatrick earlier today, he said they're ready. He said they're ready to go. And man, that was the first good news of the day. When John Fitzpatrick made that Zoom call, he said that is good news for Georgia. Not because he's a good interview. He's not. He doesn't try hard. In fact, I think John tries not to say anything. But he is one heck of a player. I don't know if you saw the ratings, but Cole Kubelik ranked John Fitzpatrick as the number 5 tight end in the SEC. And the reason why is because John Fitzpatrick is a conventional tight end. Now, when we talk about Brock Bowers, we call him a tight end, but he's really not. He's really more of an H-back. He's more of a matchup guy. He doesn't really manhandle the guys in the trenches like John Fitzpatrick can do in the running game and give you that true dual threat. So when I say John Fitzpatrick career high is 4 catches and 41 yards, and yet he's one of the most important pieces of the game, you might say, wait a minute, why is that? Well, because with John Fitzpatrick, you can run double tight end set. You can run that conventional tight end who can line up tight on the line and is still able to go out and catch passes. He's a 6'7" target. I think he's improved his hands as his career's gone on. Safety valve kind of guy, a guy that you got to cover, or a guy that can knock you on your butt. That's why coaches like these double tight end sets, right? Because it kind of limits the personnel that the other team can put on the field. So with Fitzpatrick being healthy, that means that Clemson knows now, Georgia's going to have that double tight end component. We've got to have a defensive package for that. And it's one more card that Kirby and Todd Monken can play, because this is a game of matchups. You kind of hunt and pack and see what personnel packages work for you against the defense. How are they going to counter you? Where do you find an advantage? And that double tight end set is one of those packages that I know Georgia feels really good about. Because let me tell you something. The first key to this game that nobody's talking about, because we all thought that it was going to turn into a shootout, but the real key to this game is Kendall Milton's ability to run the ball against that Clemson front. You know, Clemson gave up over 200 yards rushing to Ohio State last year. And I'm not sure why we're not convinced that someone like a Kendall Milton can't go for 100. Kendall's been the best back in the offseason now. You may wonder about Zamir or James Cook or Kenny McIntyre. These are all great backs, and, maybe plug one of their names in there. But if I got to pick one based on what I've heard and based on the personality of that Clemson defensive front, remember, as Kirby talked about, fast twitch, quick, built to get after quarterbacks. I don't know how they'll handle a 220-pound moose like Kendall Milton. That's why I like him running into this Clemson defensive front. Now, the reason that's important, it's not like Georgia's going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I'm not buying that. But what they are going to do is they're going to be able to run the ball and have some balance. And if you've got some balance, it really puts the defense on their heels, really makes life a lot easier for JT Daniels. Might even neutralize the pass rush a little bit. And if you can do that with a run game, it gives you a chance. I mean, think back to when Florida beat Georgia last year. Florida had a little success running the ball without Jordan Davis in there. I believe that kind of unlocks some things for Kyle Trask. I really think the run game is an important element. Again, I don't think you're running on first down. I think if you're Georgia, we're going to see a lot of throwing on first down. I think James Cook is the starter. I think you're going to see James Cook have a big game. I'd say 5 or 6 catches. Maybe he goes over 100 yards between his rushing and his pass catching, because Cook can run out of that draw. He can do some things with the jet sweep. So I expect James Cook, Kendall Milton. Kenny McIntosh is going to be running back kicks, but he's another versatile player. Zamir White, we've seen him in short yardage, a bit of a bull of a runner. Those guys all factor in big. So that's my first key to the game is I like the Georgia run game here to open some things up. Conversely, Clemson was only 11th in the ACC in the run game last year, and that was with Travis Etienne, the first-round running back, and Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, and still only 11th. I don't think Clemson can run the ball on Georgia. I think they're going to be one-dimensional. Now, 2 quarterbacks. I like JT Daniels over DJU, not because of what his pro potential is. It's what is it right now? Talking about right now, this game. JT has been in front of 100,000 before. He talked about that today, the most nervous he's ever been. His freshman year against Texas, over 100,000, said you had to scream just for your running back to hear what you were saying when he was lined up. So JT's been, and I don't expect this environment to be close to that. This is one of those neutral site, Jacksonville, Charlotte, 50-50 fan, bowl game. It's not deafening. It's a different deal than what Notre Dame had to deal with at Sanford Stadium or what Georgia had to deal with before at Neyland Stadium. So I think it's 50-50, but it's having all the eyes on you, network TV, big buildup. JT's been there before. He's got the scars to prove it. Okay. He's been on the big stage. JT can say it's one game, they lose, you move on. He can live with it. DJU, I don't think he's really been in this environment. Now, the Notre Dame game was big. He lost, by the way. That was a big, but it didn't have the crowd. And it wasn't like the only game that everybody, and now it's his team. Listen, DJU is a great guy. Had a chance to visit with his head coach in California. And Big Cinco is one of my favorites. In fact, I like Clemson football. I like Dabo Swinney. Go back with Dabo, got a lot of respect and appreciation for the coach he's become. I think he's fantastic. And I think this is going to be a really tough X's and O's matchup for Kirby Smart. I think Clemson's going to do some things offensively that's going to challenge Kirby and Dan Lanning. I expect Clemson to score some points with their coaching. They're going to coach him up. They're going to do some things. I can promise you Clemson probably going to steal 7 to 10 points in this game. Yet and still, I'm bullish on the Georgia Bulldogs. I want to go down the injury list. Coach Smart went through that a little bit with us today. I mentioned a moment ago, John Fitzpatrick is going to play. And, again, if you told me I'd be carrying on and on about John Fitzpatrick playing in this game and how important it was, I'd have told you were crazy. But when I look at the offense and the fact that Darnell Washington is out, he's the other tight end that can do all this stuff. It makes John Fitzpatrick just so important. Kearis Jackson's probable to play. Kirby's told us Kearis is back. We've seen him back. He was playing with a knee brace. The question I have is, how effective can he be after the catch? I know he can make the catch. I know he's reliable. I know he's a lunch pail guy. He's going to be where he's supposed to be. But what can he do after the catch? This is something to keep an eye on. If he's not effective, maybe you see a little more Ladd McConkey. Maybe Arian Smith gets a little run. Let's talk about Arian Smith. Maybe the fastest player in college football. I'll be interested to see how Kirby Smart and Todd Monken use Arian Smith. This is a guy who can fly, runs the jet sweep. Obviously, we've seen him on the deep ball. He missed some time in the offseason, though, because he was running track. And he's been a little beat up. He's had a little bit of an ankle, had a little bit, I think Kirby said someone stepped on his toe one day. So what will Arian Smith do? Will he be any kind of an X factor? Certainly he's a guy Clemson will identify when he's on the field. Jalen Kimber, cornerback, another guy probable. Jalen missed a scrimmage earlier this offseason. You wonder a little bit about that. If Jalen doesn't start, you're looking at maybe Keely Ringo or Amir Speed, 2 guys that really haven't had a lot of game experience. Now, Amir's been a reserve for many years. He's a veteran. He's had a pretty good offseason. I think we see him opposite Darian Kendrick, but I do think you're going to see some Keely Ringo, and we'll see some Jalen Kimber. I'm just not sure how much. Kirby hasn't really talked a lot about that. Warren Erickson, the center, a few weeks ago when camp started, first day, hurt his hand, has a cast on his snapping hand. What are we going to get from Warren Erickson? Kirby says he's been practicing. Didn't say where he's been practicing. I think you're still going to see Cedric Van Pran at center, Jamari Salyer at left tackle. And I think you're going to see Erickson work his way into the lineup at guard, Justin Schaefer at left guard, Tate Ratledge at right guard. Maybe you see Erickson get some of those reps at guard behind one of those players. Of course, Warren McClendon, freshman All-American, is your starting right tackle. Tyke Smith. Now, Tyke, there's no doubt about it. Tyke is an impact player. This is a guy that plays that hybrid star position, half linebacker, half DB, strong enough to come up against the run, great open field tackler, but also effective in coverage. I think Tyke's out. I listed him as doubtful because I guess you never say never, but I think he's out. He's a guy that had surgery a couple of weeks ago. This is big. Georgia is really thin at that star position. Remember, Tyreek Stevenson transferred to Miami. Major Burns transferred to LSU. Mark Webb went pro. I mean, boom, there's three guys gone, three potential starters. And then the guy you recruit, Tyke Smith from West Virginia, to fill the spot, he's gone too. So you're 4 down at that spot. That means Latavius Brini or Dan Jackson probably going to get some reps there. We'll see what happens with that. I think Brini probably gets first go. We saw Brini against Cincinnati, played a decent game against the Bearcats, but no one's going to confuse him for Richard LeCount. Darnell Washington, we talked about Darnell earlier. Doubtful, I think really doubtful. I would almost say out. But again, one of those never say nevers. This is a guy that had surgery. Darnell with those big gloves, I'll tell you, it gets downfield, lumbering, stumbling, 6'7", 285. Man, when he's back in the lineup, Georgia's going to be something else. And then Dominic Blaylock. Last we heard from Kirby, Dominic was just running straight line. We haven't really heard anything more. It'd be a shocker to me if he was in the game. Again, I never say never, but another guy that once he's back, that Georgia arsenal gets so much better. And of course, George Pickens, right? George Pickens, a guy that I don't expect back until at least late October. So setting the table for you there. I like Georgia to win this game. I gave you all the reasons why. And now I want to take a break here. I want to take a break. When we come back from this break, Steve Spurrier is going to join us. We're going to get Steve Spurrier on the line. I think you're going to enjoy hearing from Coach Spurrier. I think he's a legend. I think he's someone that you kind of always knew what to expect when you played a Steve Spurrier team. There's something to be said for people and products that consistently meet your high expectations. And that's something that Ingles has done. You think about it, even during the pandemic with all the challenges and the crisis mode that we were all in, we always knew that we could count on Ingles. That hasn't changed. Ingles still the place you can go that you can count on. Let's take a moment to recognize our sponsor, Ingles.
It's in our hearts to feel for you. There's been ups and downs, turnarounds, good days and some bad, but we stand together for worse and for better. We'll always have your back with open arms, heart to heart, hand in hand, community strong.
Welcome back to the program. Really excited and pleased to bring on 7-time SEC Coach of the Year, 2-time ACC Coach of the Year, 1996 national champion, former Heisman Trophy winner, Steve Spurrier. Coach Spurrier, thanks so much for joining us.
Okay, Mike, good to be with you.
This is a good one now. This is interesting. You know, a lot of Georgia fans, they know all about Steve Spurrier. Coach Spurrier, 2-2 against Georgia as a player. I want to go back in the Wayback Machine for just a minute because Coach Dooley ran a pretty good program at Georgia. What do you take away? What are your memories of your time as a player against the Georgia Bulldogs in that rivalry?
Oh, we were sort of fortunate to win one my junior year, but they were all pretty close games. The big one, we had a chance to win the SEC if we could have beat them my senior year, but they put a good second half beat down on us. We didn't score, and they ran the ball pretty well and got some interceptions. Lynn Hughes, their safety, had a pick 6 against me. So anyway, they beat us my senior year. and I had to wait till I became a football coach to beat them a few times.
Well, Coach, you did. In fact, I would go so far as to say you terrorized Georgia, as well as Tennessee, as well as a lot of teams being dominated in the 1990s. I mean, 11-1 against Georgia. I mean, it's really a remarkable run of success against any program, much less a rival. What did that rivalry, and I know the Gators have Florida State as a rival as well, but what did that rivalry mean to you against Georgia as a head coach?
When I got the Florida job in '90, obviously the team we needed to beat to win the SEC was usually always the Georgia Bulldogs. We didn't play Alabama during the regular season. And then, 2 years later, 1992, we added a couple of schools, Arkansas, South Carolina, I think, and then had that championship game. So then had to start beating Alabama in the championship game. But anyway, to win the SEC, the Florida Gators usually got knocked out by the Georgia Bulldogs, and that's why we didn't have any prior to 1990. But I was fortunate as a coach that we had much, much better team in 1990 and 91 than the Georgia Bulldogs had. And all we had to do is make sure we were ready to go play. I think in the past, some Gator teams would sort of mentally say something bad's going to happen when we play Georgia. I think Georgia had won 15 of the last 20 games against the Gators in the 70s and 80s. But we just mentally said, we are better than those guys. Now let's go play like it. And then we started getting a little upper edge on Georgia after winning, several years in a row.
No doubt about it. Florida, 4 straight SEC championships. Haven't even seen Alabama do that during their dynasty. I mean, that's quite a run. And of course, I was covering Tennessee, so I saw a lot of that success against the Tennessee Vols. Coach, you're kind of known for, as much as you're known for the offensive genius and the fun and gun, you're also kind of known for your quips. And when we were talking about that off camera, off stage a little bit, there was actually a little bit of strategy to that. There was a little bit more to it than just being funny. You actually had some strategy to that. I wanted to know if you'd be willing to share some of that strategy with those quips.
Oh, I don't know how much strategy was involved. Most of all my little corny jokes occurred during the summer when we had those Gator clubs all over the state. I did like 21, 22 Gator clubs in June and July. We'd play golf during the day and then meet up with a bunch of Gators. Usually, if it's Orlando, there might be 400 or 500 come out, and the bigger cities, bigger crowds. But they always want to hear something funny about usually Georgia or Tennessee or FSU or whoever. And so we'd say something funny. And if the other teams want to say something funny about the Gators, that was fine with us. I guarantee you. I never got upset at what any other coach said. So it was just off season, making things light a little bit. But if they want to get mad at us, that doesn't bother me at all. I don't think getting mad at your opponent is going to help you to win. I think you can have some fire, obviously, but just being mad over something corny somebody said, I don't think will help you beat the other team.
Yeah, in fact, you almost wonder if it was a bit of a distraction. Teams get a little hung up thinking too much about the Gators in the off season instead of maybe the preparation. One of the things
I think you can talk. Yeah, I agree with you. I think you can talk too much about your opponent sometimes. And then all of a sudden the game gets here and, well, let's see, we've been talking about these guys for a month or two or all year. And then maybe you don't play your best. And I really think that may have happened to Clemson a bit when we were able to beat them those 5 years in a row at South Carolina. Because Dabo had some good teams during those years, but they did not play well against us. They would drop punts, have all kind of fumbles and stuff, and we were pretty error-free during those 5 years in a row that we were able to beat them.
Yeah, that was a pretty remarkable stretch run.
Mm-hmm.
The time that you were at South Carolina, obviously also very successful. One of the things I was able to do through the Football Writers Organization, something I wanted to do for a long time, was name an award, the first year coaches award after you. It's going to be known as the Steve Spurrier Award. And when you and I first discussed it, you said you kind of like that angle of it being a coach who's in his first year to school. As someone who had a lot of success, share why you like the concept of the Spurrier Award.
Yeah, Mike, I think most coaches, when they get a job, they try to downplay their team and try to say this is going to take 3 or 4 years to build this thing back up and all that. When in actuality, there's a lot of good players, I think, in almost every school. And now some schools are obviously pretty light and need several years of recruiting. But a lot of teams are in pretty good shape. And all it takes is a coach to come in and really get the guys believing, hey, we're good enough to beat those other guys we play. Now let's go do it. So those coaches that convince their guys they're good enough to go win, they can do it. And that's what this award will be about, those first-year coaches that have an outstanding year, maybe even win a conference championship. And to me, they'll certainly deserve being Coach of the Year.
Now, some of these coaches these days do different sorts of things to motivate. And, of course, we've seen Coach Mullen wakeboarding. We see a lot of these videos of guys dancing in the locker room. Could you ever see yourself doing something like that back in your day as a coach? And what were some of the things maybe you did to motivate your guys?
Oh, we didn't do much motivating, I don't think, in the locker room per se. During the week, we would say what we needed to say. And I'm like a lot of coaches. I really believe your motivation and your preparation, starts early in the week and you let it build up through the game. And then when the game's over, then you take a deep breath and celebrate a little bit, hopefully, if you won the game. If not, you just got to suck it up and then get ready for your next opponent, maybe the next Monday, and so forth. But we tried to prepare through the week, and then when the game came on Saturday, there wasn't a lot of emotion, I don't think, in the locker room before games. After the game, I might hug a bunch of guys, but no, we didn't do all that dancing that they like to do now.
We were talking a minute ago about the times you played against Georgia and, some of the relationships you built, talking with Mark Richt now. I know he holds you in high regard and he had a lot of really nice things to say about the Spurrier Award. And then when Coach Richt recently disclosed the Parkinson's, you were one of the very first people, to send the condolences. What was the relationship like with Rick? Because you guys went against one another when he was at Florida State a little bit as an assistant too, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they beat us more than we beat them, that's for sure, when he was at FSU. But I think we had pretty much a normal relationship as far as, opposite team coaches and so forth. I would see him at the SEC meetings. That was about it. I don't think Mark played much golf, so I didn't see him at any golf tournaments in the off season. So anyway, Mark's a really wonderful person. Obviously, I think he's very close to Coach Bowden, and said a lot of really wonderful things about Coach Bowden when he passed away here several weeks ago. And Mark, I hope he's doing okay with that Parkinson's. I think there's some medicines now that really can help people. So hopefully he's doing well.
Well, one Georgia coach that does play golf and also wears a visor, as you noted. When I first asked you about Kirby a couple of years ago, the first thing you said is he wears a visor. So you got a little bit of a soft spot for him. But first, who's a better golfer? Is Kirby? Who wins a golf match? I know you guys were at that golf deal in Birmingham together this offseason. Weren't you at Birmingham or Atlanta?
Well, they have one at Reynolds Plantation. I see him there a lot. It's mostly a team event at those things. I'm sure he could probably beat me now. Back in my day as a pretty good golfer, though. I don't know what his handicap is. I think he only plays a little bit during the summer months. But, I like Coach Kirby. I like the way he wears that visor all the time. I don't know if the Georgia people gave him any crap about it, but he's a visor guy. In fact, I like all those visor guys out there in the coaching profession.
Right. Is there anything about Kirby that stands out to you? Obviously, he came out of the Nick Saban system, but he's a young guy like you. I think he's now 45 going into year 6. You mentioned the visor, maybe a little brash. I don't know. What are your impressions and thoughts on Kirby this early in his career?
Well, he's done very well. He hasn't hit the top yet. He's got teams that are always capable, so they're probably going to hit the top pretty soon. I still feel sorry for all the Georgia Bulldogs when Tua hit that pass on, what was it, 2nd and 28 or 9, something like that. That was a hard one, but they'll bounce back from it. And he's got a team this year that possibly could go all the way. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But yeah, when you have strong, powerful teams the way he's built them, pretty soon they're probably going to get to the top of the pile here pretty soon.
Well, the guy that's been between Georgia and the top of the pile is Nick Saban, and you're no stranger to Saban. You were 3-1 against Nick Saban. You beat him at LSU twice when you were with the Gators, and then you beat him when you were at South Carolina. In fact, you're the last SEC East Division coach to beat Nick Saban. That was a minute ago. What do you think teams need to do to beat Nick Saban, and why did you have so much success against him?
Well, when we beat him when he was at LSU, now he was not considered one of the all-time greats or whatever you guys call him now, whatever it is. That was way back in 2000 and 2001. I think 2000 was his first year there. So we actually beat him pretty good. But in 2001, even though we beat them, they came back, won the Western Division, and won the SEC that year. They beat Tennessee after Tennessee upset us the last game of the season. So and he won a national championship at LSU, 2 years later, I guess.
Yeah.
So when we were beating him those years, he was not considered the greatest coach like people consider him now. So anyway, the game we had with him in Columbia was by far the best game our quarterback Stephen Garcia had his entire career, and we played an almost near perfect game, and they didn't play very well. Greg McElroy got sacked 7 times. I don't know, they had a turnover or 2. They missed an extra point. They had a lot of just bad things happen, and we had a really, really good game, and that's how you pull a big upset.
Well, Coach, it wasn't too long ago you were on the sidelines coaching one of them professional leagues. I think, as you said, or I think as I said, you probably would have been coach of the year in that league too. You were 7-1, and the reason I bring that up is Nick Saban turned 70 this year, and now these head coaches in college have to do so much. How much longer could a guy go like that? And, I guess there's part of me that still wonders why you're not on somebody's sideline or in somebody's booth as an analyst.
Well, he can go a lot more years. Nick is in excellent health. He's been the same size physically. I think his weight's been the same for the last 50 years probably. So he's got a lot of years ahead of him. And his lifestyle is very healthy. So he can go, I don't know, another 10 years if he wants to, probably. And he may do it. I remember one time he told me I wouldn't know what else to do if I wasn't coaching. And so I think he's got a lot of years left. And as long as they have the #1 recruiting class in America, he's got a lot of years left.
No doubt. One of the teams that's gotten in his way a couple times is Dabo Swinney in the Clemson Tigers. And obviously Dabo has done a great job building that program down there in Clemson. But when you were at South Carolina, you went 6-4 against Clemson, and you beat Dabo and the Tigers 5 straight years at one point in that rivalry. How in the world were you able to do that at South Carolina against the Clemson that we know?
Well, again, we had really good teams between 2010 and 13. And then the 2009 game, we played extremely well, and they did not play very well. But, we sort of got a little mental edge on them there for a while. And, again, they would have a lot of turnovers, and we had very few. We just played better. And a lot of our guys had some of their best games. So it was a good run there, but I think Dabo's won 6 in a row since 2014, I believe it is. So he's I think he's either even or ahead of the Gamecocks right now.
He mentioned recently that when he lost to Georgia in 2014, which is the last time last time Clemson's lost a regular season game to an SEC team, he said you left a voicemail for him. What led you to dial up a rival coach and give him that little bit of consolation? That's interesting.
Oh, I did leave him a voicemail. Oh, I halfway forgot about it. What did I tell him? It wasn't anything.
Well, something about, I guess your team lost too. I guess you stunk it up too or something.
Oh, yeah, we lost also. Yeah, we lost also. And I think I just, I don't even know what I said. What did I say to him?
He just said he saved the voicemail out of consolation. You know, the fact that, Steve Spurrier would call him up and leave a message like that. I mean, it is kind of interesting. I guess you wouldn't expect to hear from your rival after the first week to console you. I just wonder if it was more of that art of war stuff you like to practice.
No. Dabo's a good, I think Dabo's a good friend. I consider him a good friend. And we had, a little sort of chirping at each other when we were both coaching in the state of South Carolina, because that's a huge rivalry, Clemson and South Carolina. Those fans do not like to lose to the other team. I can tell you that right now. And when I see some Gamecocks and they say, Coach, I was there between 10 and 14 and 9 and 13, they got a smile on their face because they know we beat Clemson those years. So, and then every now and then I see a Clemson person that said, I was at Clemson when we never beat you guys, and it was no fun. So it is a big rivalry in the state of South Carolina. And, of course, Clemson owns it right now, but I guess the Gamecocks, we had our day there between 2009 and 2013.
When you see an opening game matchup like Georgia against Clemson, like we're going to see in Charlotte, North Carolina, when you think of keys to the game, and I know you don't sit around breaking down film of these teams, but just kind of off the top of your head, what are some of your thoughts on a matchup like this early between programs like this?
Yeah, simply who plays the best, who plays without, bad plays and careless plays, things of that nature. Crucial turnovers can really hurt. If you throw a 50-yard pass and they intercept it falling down, that doesn't hurt you. There's no harm in that. But the crucial turnovers and mistakes can cost you the game. But I think it'll come down to who plays the best, who makes the most plays. Maybe a long touchdown pass, great catch here and there, or maybe a defensive play. Who knows? But that should be the game of the week in the nation, I think, Clemson and Georgia. So I'll certainly be looking forward to watching that one.
Do you ever play, and now we're in this playoff era, and I go back and I think about some of those Gator teams, maybe even a South Carolina team or two, 4-team playoff, 12-team playoff. Do you like that? I remember you weren't necessarily a proponent of the SEC championship at first, but do you like where this is going?
Well, I was sort of thinking 8 teams might get it done, but now it looks like they want to go to 12, which is another week in there. I hope it doesn't kill the bowl system. Those people, I think, have been really good for college football. And so maybe they can have the playoff games in the bowls and keep most of those going. But, football had been the only sport without a playoff system. Now we had a 2-team back in the late 90s, I guess. And then we had the 4-team. And now maybe all the way to 12. So, I think it's good for a lot of teams to be able to get into the playoffs instead of the same 4 almost every year. And we all know who those 4 are. So it may be really good for college football to have some new teams in there. I don't know if you know or not, Mike. You know who the last team to win the national championship for the first time in school history was?
No, I do not.
The last team that won it for the first time ever in school history was the 96 Florida Gators. That means every year after that, a team had already won it before in the history of their school. it's been all repeat winners since '96. And in basketball this year, Baylor came in there and won it. And how about Mississippi State winning the national championship in baseball? Now, that to me, when the sport gives everybody a chance maybe to have that one big year, I just think it's really good for that sport.
That's pretty fast. I didn't know that. That's pretty good, fascinating, and that is kind of the thought, I guess, of spreading it around, getting more conferences.
Somebody called me a while back and told me that, so I thought it was pretty neat that the '96 Florida, first time in school history, and we haven't heard anybody say that in football since then.
No, we'll have to bring that up. But now, Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC, and they might even move the division around. Are we going to see Texas and Oklahoma take over the league? Do you think this is a significant addition here?
I tell you what, Mike, Oklahoma believes they can certainly play with us. I know they clobbered my Gators in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, several of our guys opted out, and they played all their guys. But Oklahoma is a tradition-rich football program, as we know, and they're not afraid of anybody in the SEC. So they're looking forward to the challenge. Texas, I think it helps them. Texas A&M, they'll start playing each other again, and maybe it'll help Texas also.
You made a recent prediction. You just brought up the Gators. You made a recent prediction, caused a lot of waves because not many people pick against Nick Saban, but heck, I guess if you beat him enough like you have, you can. You predicted Florida was going to upset Alabama. What were some of the things that made you feel like the Gators might get one?
Because I had absolutely nothing to lose by saying that. I tell you what, though, Mike, it is going to be a loud swamp. I think it's a 3:30 game. Alabama historically does not come here much. I think I don't know the last time they came. It was a few years back. So we had a big win over Alabama in 1991, exactly 30 years ago. In fact, we beat them 35-0. I don't know if you know that or not, but that was the power of the swamp and the fans and our players just believing that we play so much better and we can beat anybody down here in the swamp. Of course, after that game, Alabama went on a 22-game win streak. Gene Stallings and his guys won all the rest of them and then won every game, I think, in the 92 season also. So anyway, it'll be a huge game down here, and the fans are all looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm trying to think. You went a few years before you lost an SEC game in the swamp, didn't you?
We didn't lose many. Auburn won a couple, won one, and Alabama beat us 40-39 there that one year.
Yeah.
Then lost one to Tennessee. Maybe three in 12 years.
That's not Coach, that's not too bad, man. Listen, hey, I've taken up a lot of your time. I appreciate you coming. I know the Georgia fans appreciate your perspective, and certainly it's a badge of honor when you got all these fan bases that said, man, I couldn't stand it when we played the Spurrier with the Gators or with the Gamecocks, and but to hear you talk about how those rivalries went and what it meant to you, it's kind of interesting to hear kind of the other side of that.
Yeah, I tell you what, Mike, we're having a reunion the Tennessee week, September 24, 25 this year, of our 95 and 96 team. We sort of do it every 25 years if you just win a conference championship. And so both of those teams both those teams are the only two in school history to go 9-0 in SEC play. We won all of our conference games, and the 95 team went undefeated in the regular season and won the SEC. And then, of course, the 96 team, we were fortunate after losing at FSU. Some teams ranked ahead of us all lost, and we got a rematch with FSU, and were able to win that national championship that year. But anyway, those reunions are fun, and I used to tell players all the time, now, if we win a championship, man, we'll celebrate it the rest of our lives. So this is a chance to do that that weekend.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have many Tennessee fans coming in there, though, Coach. I don't know if you're going to bring in much out-of-town business.
Oh, they'll have some that maybe want to come to Florida. but it will be. It's early though, so it will not. It'll be a good hot day, most likely.
Would you ever want to see Georgia play in this? I know you played once in Sanford Stadium as a coach. Do you think we'll ever get to see a Georgia Florida game in the Swamp? I know you favor Jacksonville, Coach.
They came in '94, and then we went up there in '95. So in fact, there was you'll have to ask Coach Goff. It was sort of interesting. We beat them. Gosh, I think we had 4 turnovers for touchdowns that night, but. We're out there warming up, and lightning, you know how lightning comes, all over the South. But anyway, so the referees sent us in pregame warm-ups. So you guys, go in the locker room. We got a lightning delay maybe. So the referee comes and tells us, hey, we're kicking off in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, 10 minutes. So we went running out there. We loosened up, ran around a little bit. And the Bulldogs are nowhere around. Somebody forgot to tell them what time we were kicking off. And it seemed like the referee ran into the visitors' locker room and said, we're kicking off in 1 minute or something. So Coach Ray Goff had to, hey, kickoff team, let's go. So I don't know, it was something like that. But there was some confusion about the start. And then the Bulldogs just had a very tough day offensively that night.
Any favorite memories? You've got a ton of them. I've seen your restaurant. You got all those helmets up. My goodness, I didn't realize you coached at all those programs or played at all. But when we talk about the Steve Spurrier legacy, what games mean the most to you? What moments?
Really all of them. Starting in my college career at Duke. I mean, I coached the Tampa Bay Bandits there for all 3 years of the USFL, and we had some winning teams every year. And some really good teams. But, there's too many to count. But probably one I'm most proud of, Mike, is our teams, we're always competitive. And even the years we didn't win the championship, we were up there fighting for it. And the guys, even when we had a loss or two here and there, we bounced back and finished the season strongly. So, we won here at Florida, we won between 9 and 12 every year. We didn't even have one of those 8 and 4s or anything like that. So that was, I think, sort of a testimony to the players and the leadership we had on the team and so forth. Yeah.
No doubt about it. Florida coach.
All right, Mike.
Coach.
All right, my man. Listen, I'm looking forward to having the banquet for the Coach of the Year. First, we got a bunch of coaches out there in their first year. You know, we got a lot of candidates. So it all starts this weekend. I'll be keeping an eye on them, and you keep an eye on them also, okay?
We'll stay on top of it, Coach. I appreciate you coming on the program tonight.
Okay, Mike. Good talking to you. Bye-bye.
Great stuff. Coach Steve Spurrier, national championship coach, a dominator of Tennessee, Georgia, Clemson. Spurrier left a lot of great programs in his wake, and you can just tell talking to him. I mean, he's a pretty confident guy. He's kind of done it his way. I've got an appreciation for that. I've covered enough other programs that played Spurrier and the Gators, and I've seen a lot of his greatest games. I got to see Alabama beat him. I saw Alabama lose to him. Saw Auburn beat him at the Swamp, that game he was referencing in 1994. I saw the what they called the choke at the Doak. Gators and the Seminoles ended up in a 34-34 tie. Kind of thought the whistle went against Coach Spurrier and the Gators in the second half when FSU made a comeback. And just a guy you can't help but really respect the success that he's had. And, doggone it, if it was your team playing him, you couldn't stand him. But for the coaches and for the players and the fans that were on Coach Spurrier's side, they absolutely love him. And so now there's a Spurrier Award that'll go to the best first-year coach in the country. And there'll be some awarded retroactively to coaches that had great first years, and probably even see a Georgia coach on that list at some point. So it was cool for Coach Spurrier to come on knowing that, hey, this is the dognation.com on the beat show, well aware Georgia fans out there, but he loves the SEC. You could tell the memories, the photographic memory that Coach Spurrier has. It's impressive. And you can tell the respect. Remember what he said, that the reason that Florida hadn't won any national titles was because of the Georgia Bulldogs getting in their way. You know, he identified Georgia early on as the program that he needed to beat to get over the hump. And he did make that game in the Tennessee game special for Florida Gators. We've had Chris Doring on the program before, and he explained how Florida built those guys up. And those comments, he was being a little modest. I've talked to him off the air before. Those comments he knew had the potential to be a distraction for programs. And I think Coach Spurrier is a brilliant tactician, not just from an X's and O's standpoint, but from a psychological standpoint. I think he knew exactly what he was doing to get his teams at their best. And those Gators were a confident bunch. Now, you've heard me take Dan Mullen to task recently for saying 8-4 is a great season. And I was on a Florida program last week, and I had to explain to him, look, that's not great by Florida standards any more than winning 8 games is great by Georgia standards. You would not hear Kirby Smart say that 8-4 is a great season. You would never hear Steve Spurrier say that 8-4 is a great season. In fact, he just pointed out that he never won fewer than 9, and they played a much more condensed schedule than Florida's playing now. So when I think about the all-time great coach, and when I think about the Mount Rushmore of SEC coaches, Steve Spurrier, Paul Bear Bryant, and Nick Saban are the 3 coaches that I start with. And you got to put Saban up there. You got to put him up there. But Paul Bear Bryant and then Steve Spurrier, he's got to be up there. He was an innovator. What he did was different than the rest. And you've heard me preach this before on the program, and I'm going to say it again, just because it meant so much to me in my career. When I asked Steve Spurrier in 1994, what made him a great football coach? And he said, there are 2 ways to be successful in life. You can do it like everyone else and work harder and longer, or you could do things differently. He does things differently. And he was still winning a couple of years ago. This guy can flat out coach. It doesn't matter where you put him. Steve Spurrier was a winner. Now, I don't know what happened with the Redskins. The talk that I hear from NFL people was that NFL players wouldn't go along with different. They weren't signing up for that. They weren't buying in. The NFL is somewhat homogenous. Everyone does it the same way, and they weren't willing to buy into some of the different things that Spurrier was trying to get done. Now, that's what I was told. Not from Coach Spurrier. He takes that one on the chin. You hear it. When he loses, he owns it. He owned those 2 losses to the Georgia Bulldogs. You could hear a little pain in his voice when he talked about losing to Georgia his senior year in a game that would have enabled him to win the SEC championship. Players don't ever forget games like that. And Coach Spurrier is a competitor. And that's another thing about him, whether it was on the football field or on the gridiron or on the golf course. You know, he wasn't going to give it up to Kirby. He said, well, maybe he can beat me now. But when he was he didn't finish the sentence or the sentiment, but he was basically saying he wouldn't have beat me, 10, 15 years ago. And I don't know what that relationship is like between Kirby Smart and Steve Spurrier. You think about this. Coach Spurrier was at Florida when Kirby Smart was being recruited out of South Georgia. And I'm not really sure if there's any, I don't believe there's any, I don't have any reason to believe that. Coach Kirby Smart is very respectful of former coaches. I remember last year I was doing a special piece on the late, great Pat Dye, former Georgia Bulldog, and of course, an Auburn coaching legend. And I asked Kirby for a comment, and he didn't send a comment, but he did one better. He sent a family heirloom of an autograph that his family and he got from Coach Pat Dye from way back in the day when he was at a camp. And it meant something to Coach Smart that his family held on to it so long. So Kirby Smart, he didn't really grow up watching a lot of college football. He'll tell you that. He was more into the high school football. But he's a guy who has a lot of respect for the college football legends. And, the fact that he wears a visor, I think is kind of interesting. Like you heard, Coach Spurrier really likes that. He really does. He gets a kick out of it. And he's glad that the Georgia fans don't give Kirby too much trouble for the visor. But you think about the visor, and that was kind of that's kind of the Spurrier trademark symbol when we think about coaches wearing visors. You think about Steve Spurrier. And now you wonder if maybe Kirby Smart can recreate some of that visor magic. When Georgia won 3 straight SEC East Division titles, nobody else in SEC history had done that except for Steve Spurrier. when he won 4 straight SEC championships, something that Nick Saban hasn't even done. And you just can't ignore the record, folks. You just can't ignore him being 3-1 against Saban, him beating Dabo Swinney 5 times in a row. And you heard him boil the game down. It's simple. We're looking at this match. It's who plays better. And to me, that comes down to execution. And as I continue to shrink that down, the things that make you play better at the line of scrimmage, you keep your quarterback clean and protected so he's not under duress, less likely to make a mistake. That's why I take Georgia in this game. The team that can run the ball a little bit more, make it a little bit harder for the defense to put you in position to make those mistakes, Kendall Milton and Georgia. So a lot of great talk tonight, a lot of fun.